Welcome back. This is the 89th segment of Making Sense for 7 minutes, and it is the 19th segment where we are taking a hard look at evil and suffering. And we're going to do this, and are doing this, over 25 segments. A number of times during the course of this exploration, I pointed out that as a follower of Jesus, I am working from the perspective of a biblical worldview. Now, I'm also working with the conviction that the biblical worldview is the one really accurate and true worldview out there among all of the other options that you may have. But you know what? There really aren't that many other options. In fact, in addition to the biblical worldview, fundamentally, there are only 3 others. Now, let me tell you why I think this is important. A person's worldview, and everybody has one, is by definition, and are you ready for this? It's how they view the world. It is how they believe the universe actually operates. What reality is to their way of thinking. And a person's worldview will determine largely how they process, what they conclude, what they think about the reality of the evil and suffering around them and in the world at large. Not to mention that it will determine to a large degree how they approach and deal with and act and react and cope with the evil and the suffering that they see and that they experience in their own lives. Now, if a person's worldview is wrong, if it's inaccurate, then what they conclude is going to be wrong. And what they do and how they cope, since it's based upon false beliefs, is going to be certainly insufficient and very possibly damaging, because we're talking about evil and suffering. So, right quickly, let me just run through what the 4 basic fundamental worldviews are and encourage you to be thinking through and familiarizing yourself not only with these 4 worldviews, but also with the implications that arise out of them concerning evil and suffering, what we should think about it, and how we should respond to it. Now, the first of these 4, of course, would be atheism. Now, atheism says there is no God. This is pretty much Western secularism. It is philosophical naturalism. There is nature, but there's nothing else. There's the natural, but no supernatural. Now, again, the question is then, what does that say about evil and suffering, and how, if at all, does it equip you to deal with it and cope with it? The second would be deism, which says that there is a God who is distinct from the universe because he created it, but he is uninvolved, much like a watchmaker creates a watch, winds it up, puts it on a table, leaves it alone for it to just run down. The third would be all under the banner of Abrahamic faiths. The three faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, that historically find their root, their beginning, in the historical figure of Abraham. Now, this category of worldview is going to say there is a God. He created and is distinct from the universe, but he's also communicative, and he has revealed himself, and he is involved. And then you have pantheism, number 4, which says there is a God, and he or it is the universe. There's no difference between the two. And you are God, and I am God, and the trees are God. Now, each of these 4 worldview options have manifested and continue to manifest themselves in a variety of ways. The Christian worldview is one of 3, but it is, I'm convinced, the one that is actually true, and thus best explains evil and suffering and equips us to cope and respond to it as we ought. So we'll explore that more a bit later. Thanks, y'all.